One, our objective 2 note guide, we're really going to focus on learning the body regions and the body cavities. And the notes will be short because it's more about practice, seeing, labeling, getting used to the names. Alright, this is not new, but just remember we don't forget this stuff. We'll always refer to it anytime we're filling out the regions. At any point I may say, the forehead is superior to the knees, something like that. So this is just a review slide. Pause, look it over if you are still struggling a bit with these, but hopefully we're good by now. All right. At the end of the short notes, we're going to get the same exact picture, and it's going to have descriptions of each region, and we're going to have to label them. It sounds harder than it is because the descriptions are terms that you're used to. But again, an example of that would be, it says the brachial region is the upper arm, and within that is the brachial artery. So when you know your regions, you're going to know things we're going to learn later very well. So, all right, here's his arm. Here's his upper arm, and the only thing pointing to the upper arm is this. So that would be the brachial region, and within that region would have the brachial artery. It's kind of how that assignment's going to work. Again, there's no real point in going over what each of these are, because once you label it, practice, get better at it, you'll start to know them very well. You might not know every word you see. Probably won't. I don't think I did. Well, I know I didn't, especially back when I first learned this stuff, but you're going to know some of it, and it's going to help you with regions. We just said the brachial means upper arm. Probably not a word you heard of. You may have heard of the cervical vertebrae, that's in your neck. Femoral, that's your big leg bone in your thigh, so that's going to refer to that region. Orbital, eye, pedal, foot. Hopefully you know at least a few of these. If not, we'll work on them all year, so don't worry. This is just a way to make it a little easier once you start labeling. So go ahead, pause, put this in your notes. All right, so generally, the way the body is organized is the axial portion is referring to the head, neck, and spine. So the important parts of the nervous system we'll learn later. Head, neck, and spine is called the axial. Appendicular, like your appendages, appendicular means your arms and legs. They're considered your appendages, so those names make sense too. And then your organs, your internal organs, like your lungs, your gallbladder, heart, all of those things are called viscera. Good, pause while you put that in your notes. All right, the other thing we'll be practicing the next few days is our body cavities and membranes. So hopefully these two make sense. Remember, we said the front of the body is the anterior or ventral, AV. So the ventral cavity is your front side. Dorsal, like the dorsal fin on a shark, is on the back or posterior side. So the dorsal cavity is the back side. So really these two aren't new terms. Your cranium is the fancy name for your skull, so your cranial cavity is where your brain is. And then probably the easiest of all, your spinal cavity is where the spinal cord is. Again, we could go over each of these, but I don't see the real point. It's better to start practicing these, seeing descriptions, matching up pictures, so you start to get used to where these things are. But again, cardiac arrest, cardial means heart, and that's where that region is. Your pelvic, where your pelvis is. So some of these, your abdominal, your abs, your abdomen. So some of these terms are going to sound familiar, which will help you identify. In a couple days, we'll have a handout that looks like this, so we'll practice labeling these. You'll probably want to refer to this to help you when we get there. Again, just different views. The key to remember is I can pick any picture I want for the test. So just memorizing like the order of them, that's not going to help you necessarily. The smarter thing is to understand how the structures are organized. In other words, what's within the thoracic cavity? Where is the diaphragm located compared to it? Notice in this picture, here's a good example of what I'm talking about. We have the thoracic cavity, the chest. We have the abdominal cavity. What separates them? The diaphragm. So whatever picture you're looking at, if you remember, thoracic chest, diaphragm will be in between, and then your abdominal cavity. So the order is what's most important. But like always, we will practice a ton before you're expected to know this on a quiz or test. You'll be given stuff like this to practice long before the test. And again, if we look this compared to our last picture, chest, thoracic, stomach area, abdominal, and what's in between? The diaphragm. So it doesn't matter that this picture's order. We know the thoracic sits on top of the abdominal, and in between those is the diaphragm. Or we will know that. Go ahead, pause while you put this into your notes. Last thing we're going to talk about today are membranes. Serous membranes have two layers and they cover all of your internal organs. Think of it like a balloon. Your hand in this picture is the organ, and it pushes down in the soft cushioning balloon which surrounds it to protect it. So the serous membrane is there to protect your internal organs. The outer layer of this membrane is called the parietal level. And notice here, it's on the outside. This is called parietal pericardium because it surrounds the heart, but parietal just means outer. So once you know the different organs, it would be parietal, whatever the organ's referred to as. The inner layer is the visceral layer. So notice the inner layer of this serous membrane is called the visceral, and in this case, pericardium, because this is the heart. And within that membrane is serous fluid, again, just to give it more kind of cushion and protect those vital internal organs. And here are some other membranes, just to give you a kind of a preview of these coming. Pleural is Young's. So if we go back, peritoneum is regular, any organ that's not specific, like a pleural being the Young's, pericardium. But if you look down here, because this serous membrane is surrounding multiple organs, well, we call the outer layer the parietal, and then instead of pericardium, peritoneum, because it's covering more than one organ. The inner layer is still called visceral, but now since we're referring to more than one organ, peritoneum is what it's called. And this is just showing the same thing we just said. Every time, visceral means outer layer of the membrane, parietal inner. Outer, inner, outer, inner. And then it's called pleural because pleural refers to the lungs. Pericardium refers to the heart. Peritoneum refers to the intestines because it's covering the stomach, large and small intestine. Go ahead, pause while you do this. And this is the last of the notes. Told you they're very short because now we're just going to start labeling. So once you get this done, we're going to go to this assignment from today that you should already have open, and I'll explain how to do that. Actually, I'll show you now real quickly. Basically, it has a small description and tells you what region we're in. So within the head region, it says the forehead is referred to as the frontal region. Well, this arrow is pointing dead to his forehead. That's why it's named the frontal region. The ears, it says, are the auricle or otic region. Oh, this is pointing to the ear, so it's otic. So that's how this page is going to work. You're just going to match up the terms you know. I want you to work with partners because some of you might not know every word that's listed to help you, but you should be able to get most of them, and we will go over these to make sure you're right. So give it your best effort, get as many as you can. We'll go over this. Eventually, we're going to do the backside of a person, and then those cavities we talked about as well.